p.m. This is a meeting of the Charter Review Committee. Today is Monday, May 15th, 2021, and it's, like I said, it's 5:32 p.m. This meeting is being recorded by the Charter Review Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify me, the chairperson, at this time. Anyone? Okay. Do a roll call. Please indicate you are here by saying here. Councilor Gilmore.
Here.
Councilor Forgy.
Here.
Councilor Wheeler.
Here.
John Lunt, who may not be here. Aaron. Here. Roll call. You just made it. You here?
Are you talking to me?
I am. Can you say
Yes,
here, please?
I'm here.
Good. Alan Woods.
Here.
And David Singer here. Great. Okay. Sent out the minutes last week. Can I hear a motion to approve those minutes, and then we'll have a discussion on it?
I'd like to make an amendment.
Sure, but let's get the minutes out and with a motion, and then we can make amendments.
So moved.
So moved. I need a second.
I'll second.
Is that Sheila?
Yes.
I can't see you, Sheila, and I don't recognize you. It could be either you or
Sorry.
Aaron. Is it you that seconded it, Sheila?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any questions? Sounds like Aaron does. Yes, Aaron.
Almost at the end of it, it says that I suggested that citizen initiatives or citizens petitions, why do they need to go to the city council? And I just want it to be citizen referendum. Just make it clear which I was talking about.
Okay, well, let's make it clear. The initiative referendum is when you start from scratch, give it to the council. The citizen referendum is when you are against something that the city council passed on its own. Well, I guess it could be the same.
Right. So
I
want it to be clear that I was talking about the referendum.
Are you talking about 7-8?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be.
Right. Aaron, do you think that you were talking about 7-8? The referendum?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So do you want to, how would you like to see it read?
Just rather than saying, it says, I need to pull it up here. It says citizen petition. I just want it to specify.
So you want to say a citizen, not an initiative petition, but a citizen's referendum petition?
Yeah, it doesn't say initiative, it just says petition.
No,
so if it says referendum,
you're assuming that it meant. So you want the word referendum to be.
Yes, I want it to say referendum.
Great. Okay. Any other changes in that sentence, in the quoting of you?
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay. So Aaron's asked that the word referendum be placed between citizens and petition in the bullet that starts Chairperson Singer explain the differences, blah, 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 right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Anybody else have any suggested changes? Okay, hearing none. So all in favor of the minutes being approved as amended by Aaron, say aye. I'll do a roll call. Councilor Gilmore.
Aye.
Councilor Forgy.
Aye.
Councilor Wheeler.
Aye.
Aaron.
Aye.
David, yes. Alan?
Aye.
Thanks. Okay, so who's on the call here? We've got Kim, Ginny, Penny. Okay. I sent out a list of things to talk about. Some are long, some are short. I know that Chris Forgy has done some work on the assessors, and Kim is here from the assessor's office. So why don't, even though there's an order that's different than that, is everybody okay if we start the discussion with assessors? Yep. Okay. Okay, so just to introduce this, what I sent to you, I tried to explain in my email that to all of you that I may have been in error, or I may have misunderstood, or may have said something incorrectly about the state law as it affects assessors. It seems like from my reading online that you can have both an elected and appointed assessors in the same city or the same town. But you have to have an odd number up to, I think the number's 9. So I think Councilor Forgy read that a little differently, and she sent out a memo, and then that caused the mayor to think maybe we should get a legal opinion about that concept. So the mayor has asked the city lawyer to do that. So that's in the works. But in the meantime, I'd like to just let Councilor Forgy speak on what the work that she's done on this provision. So go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. And first of all, I want to apologize if my language was considered a bit over the top. Sometimes I get that way when I feel very strongly about something. So my intent is not to offend anybody, but to try to get the best structure we possibly can in regard to a charter change for the Board of Assessors. All right, so right now, my biggest concern about the Board of Assessors is the accountability of the whole structure of the office. It's not clear, in my mind anyway, where that authority is, nor is it clear where the elected authority is and where the appointed authority is, because of what I refer to as the hybrid structure. So I did a little bit more homework. I presented to everybody what I thought the assessors should look like. I have actually had a conversation with the mayor about this as well. And I took it upon myself to do some homework and find out what other assessors departments in the area look like. And I have first of all, my first observation is that there is no one model that the state recommends or uses. So it's kind of to local option or home rule charter, to do whatever anybody wants to do. I did look at, for the group's information, I did look at East Hampton. They have a principal assessor elected by the city council. And that assessor advises an elected board of assessors, 3 members. In Northampton, they have a principal assessor, 3 members, one of which is the principal assessor. So I'm thinking that that's sort of what we have here. We have a different term. We call it chief assessor. And the principal assessor looks to be appointed by the mayor. In Chicopee, they have 3 elected assessors. One of them is the chair of the 3, but their office structure is that they have an assistant assessor, and then they have 3 positions in there for administrative assistants. In Amherst, they have a 3-member board appointed by the town manager, and they have a principal assessor and staff within that office as well. And my last one is West Springfield, which is our sister, charter sister city. And I had a conversation with the assessor there this morning. He's only been there a little over 2 years, but he says prior to his arrival, West Springfield also had a 3-member board of assessors that were, I believe, all appointed by the mayor, and one of them was the principal assessor. But upon his hire, or when he was coming in, the mayor made a decision, and I didn't get into charter change or anything like that, but the mayor made a decision that was not a successful model. And so what the mayor chose to do was to appoint 3 members, part-time board of assessors, and they have a primary assessor, assistant or deputy, and they have a field assessor, which is a person who lives within the city itself and goes to properties to see, to do the work of the assessing department. And there is some clerical help as well. On that particular board, the 3 at this point happened to be an attorney, a realtor, and an insurance agent or person. 3 people that would be qualified, that would understand property and values, and work together. They were part-time, they received some compensation, and they were considered to be special municipal employees. The case that I will make at this point, which is what I think is most appealing, is that we currently, at least my understanding, and I know Kim will probably want to clarify a few things I probably said or didn't say, is that there is a 3-member board of assessors, whether they are elected or appointed, they adjudicate. So that was an extremely important piece to me. They are not involved in going out on a day-to-day basis or working with any vendor that the town hires or has on occasion hired. They actually just meet. The chief assessor and office staff are in the trenches doing the work, and they bring abatements and recommendations for setting the tax rate and any other thing that the Board of Assessors needs to weigh in on in accordance with Mass General Law. To me, that seems to be the clearest system for accountability. And I felt that it might be a model that could help us move forward. We're trying, at least part of my presentation is to argue that we're trying to professionalize our form of government. And we are still, in my opinion, a little bit unsure of where we are going and what we want to do in regard to assessment. Don't really feel that people that are appointed by the mayor or elected by the public should be the ones in the trenches going around and looking at all the property in Greenfield. I believe that that's a professional function. And again, I know that brings challenges with office staffing, but that's more on the budgetary. I'm interested in the structure at this point. I will also mention that West Springfield has hired the same vendor that we use. I believe that's RRG. They hire RRG, the outside vendor, to help them with their assessing to do their personal property only. They do not use them for their local property tax assessment on homes and businesses. They actually have, like I said, somebody who lives within the town and is trained as a field assessor to go out and do that and bring the information back to be entered into their database. So that is basically my presentation. I am arguing in favor of a more direct and more balanced approach to a professional assessing department, with the Board of Assessors being the adjudicators, rather than being both the people that are in the trenches and listening to the appeals that people come forward and make. Thank you. I appreciate you listening to me. I hope that this leads to a better discussion. Ultimately, I know that the council and the mayor will weigh in on this. And I also know that when it comes to this budget round, we will be discussing the assessor's office again from a budgetary point of view. At least Ways and Means will be. I'm sure the council will be as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Before question, Otis, do you have a question? I wanted to see if Kim would is willing to talk and discuss. What's that?
Sorry, I don't have a question, but I did want to clarify one thing, which is that Kim is a professional. She was not able to attain the chief assessor title until she was certified for that. So I just wanted to let the record state that.
By all means, yes. This is not against a person or anything like that. And in West Springfield, if I may add, the chief assessor or principal assessor, whatever the term is, they actually chair the Board of Assessors meeting. They don't vote, but they chair that meeting and see to it that the board's business gets done.
So Kim, if I may ask for guidance for us, one would be if you could describe how the office in Greenfield works currently, and the other would be if there's a difference, could you tell us how you think an assessor's office should function in some ideal situation if it's different from Greenfield?
Sure.
So go ahead.
So I also just wanted to quickly touch on Counselor Wheeler's note, and I did just sign up for my last class today, so I have one more thing to do. In regards to the board, so the office currently is myself and a part-time assistant. In a perfect world, I think, as I'm still working out pieces of how this all comes together, just as me in this position versus me in the assistant's position, I think a perfect world for me would be for both of us to be full-time. I don't know that I necessarily need more people at the moment, but I would like to continue to assess that because it's a possibility that maybe as I really get a very good feel on how every little piece of this job is working, it might be nice to have a part-time person as well as my full-time assistant. So currently it's myself and the administrative clerk who is 20 hours. I'm doing still quite a bit of her stuff because she just at 20 hours doesn't have time to do it, as well as doing my own things. We also have RRG, who is currently doing a little bit more than Mayflower used to do in the past because of the fact that, first of all, when I became the chief assessor, I was not very deep into my classes at all. I think I had only maybe had 3, so I really needed someone to lean on, pretty sturdy to lean on. So as I've continued on with my classes, as I have only 1 left, that's probably going to change in the future. RRG may step back a little bit. I think the intention is to still keep them. As mentioned, 99% of towns in the state of Massachusetts have someone actually doing their personal property for them. I think there's 1, maybe 2 towns out near Boston that have a ton of money and actually have someone that specializes in personal property, so they don't have anyone helping them do that. But every other city and town in the entire state of Massachusetts has some sort of outsourced company helping them with personal property, and they're finalizing for the end of the year. So right now, when it comes to the board, myself and Sandra prepare the documents that we need to discuss, so that, you know, that's excise, that's any sort of abatement that comes through. It's any sort of odd circumstance that we feel that we would be more comfortable with the decision being made through the board. An example of that is with excise tax. If someone comes and says, well, my car was repossessed, they took the license plates, it happened when I was in North Carolina, and I have no idea where my plates are or how to get them. It's been 2 years. I'm still getting excise tax bills. Normally we would say, well, sorry, you have to cancel your plates. You know, there's nothing we can do for you. In that case where the plates are revoked, we can bring it to the board and say, here's the scenario. We have all the other paperwork showing the car was totaled or the car was repoed or whatever happened. The only thing that's missing is that the plates didn't get canceled. We may have something from, you know, if they know who towed their car, they might be able to get paperwork saying that they never came back for their belongings. But in that case, we still have to bring it to the Board of Assessors. So there's odd situations like that where we would, you know, bring that sort of paperwork, but pretty much fairly standard decisions that the board has to make. There's state guidelines for all the statutory exemptions. So the board just checks over the paperwork and makes sure that every person fits the guideline, with income, with a certificate from some sort, whether it be the veterans or the blind. If the person has a hardship, it is board discretionary. I have to say our board is pretty tough about that, because they don't want to just be giving money away and hurting the town, but they also want to help these people who are in dire need of something at this time. The hardship is not meant to be something that's over and over again. And I have to say that, in my opinion, I personally think that our board is in better shape than it's been in a long time. And the reason that I say that is because the want to go to school, the want to be professional, the want to just change the way things were done in the past. They used to be a rubber stamp board. They would just say, yep, okay, okay, stamp, 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 stamp. We've changed things drastically. We've changed little things, such as we try not to use, so to speak, the rubber stamp anymore. The only time that I use that is during these circumstances where we can't have in-person meetings. But if we can have them physically wet ink everything, that's, you know, that's something, and it's small, but at the same time, it's something that, you know, we've changed. So I think that, I don't think there's any need to add more people, but I also understand why people would want to add more members to the board. I also understand why they feel as though maybe I shouldn't be a part of the board and I should just be presenting. But again, I also understand the view of wanting to have the chief assessor a part of it because of the communication that the chief member has had with the public, whereas the board doesn't necessarily have that. So it's, you know, I can understand both sides of it. Whichever is decided on is okay by me, but basically that's the way things are running right now. In a perfect world, again, I think, you know, currently I think we're in a really great place with the board. We're working towards you know, a lot of new things. We have a timeline to try to help not only ourselves, but anybody else to understand what we're doing at what time and when. They've really actually helped me become a little bit, I'm a pretty organized person anyway, but they've helped me become more organized when it comes to meetings. I think that we've gained a lot of more trust in many people with our decisions that are being made. And then, you know, again, back to the office situation, I think we're doing pretty good right now. I think, you know, RRG is a huge asset for us. So I think that keeping them around is a really good thing because they not only bring, personal property, but they bring chapter land specialists. They bring someone who specializes in ATV cases, so it saves us the attorney's fees and anything that might come with that. Normally, in a reval year, you have to ramp up your budget and add all sorts of extra money, which we haven't had to do because RRG has all these people that specialize in so many different things that, that we don't need all these extra things. The one thing that I know that all of you probably don't know and don't see because you don't work in the assessing field every day is an unfortunate, really sad factor, and that is that the assessing world is coming crashing down to nobody. When I first started in the assessor's office, Audrey brought me to an assessors association meeting at Terraza at the country club. And in the back room, if you're familiar with that, there's room for many, many, many tables, and they were full. And there was no like space to have a dance floor if that was the event that we were at. There was a space up front for a presenter. There was a space in the back for the buffet tables, and all the other space was full of tables. The last meeting that I went to had 6 tables, and there was one table that there was someone sitting alone. So although I hear many times that other cities and towns have people that actually live in their city or town and do this job, it's going to be really, really hard to get that, I think. And I don't have anything against that by any means, but I just want you to be aware of what I see every day. Another thing that's happening is in the Massachusetts Assessors Association, which is the MAAO, they are experiencing it now too. Just recently, the president of the MAAO has quit, all of a sudden just quit. She's just done with the job. Her assistant has also left because it was just too much for her. She was only doing it part-time. That put too much burden on her because she's also an assessor somewhere else. And so now they're even more short-staffed. And so I just want you to be aware that it is something that's happening everywhere. So in a perfect world, that wouldn't be the case, and that we could actually have people in every which direction, wherever we needed them, as many people as we needed. We can have as many board members as we were able, if that was something that was of interest. But, again, I just want you all to be aware that that's happening. And with what we have right now for the office, I think that, we're doing pretty well. I think that, considering the fact that 2 years ago, I was just the admin clerk and, was slowly working on my classes. And now I have one left, which, Mayor, I know you missed. I just signed up for my last class today. So, I think we've come a long way. There's been a huge, huge progress made in all of us. And so I think, we're headed in the right direction.
Thank you, Kim. Anybody have any questions? I have some questions. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So I think one of the things, so we're not assessors, but we're looking at it like a committee would look at it. And also there seems to be a sense in the community that the assessors department especially is a place where, if running at high efficiency, then the city will be able to collect the most revenue that it hypothetically can, because it's your department that determines value for personal property and real property. And so in this day and age of looking for resources, it's viewed, I guess, by us looking at the charter and maybe counselors who are on the committee, that the assessor's office is a good source of more revenue. And so in thinking about how to make your office run better, it sounds like you're saying that having a chief assessor and 2 elected assessors at this point it doesn't necessarily need any change. But my question to you is, when it comes to the real estate field work, who, in your opinion, would be best suited to do that and to get the best results for us?
So I think that this is sort of a different scenario. You know, it depends on the person's experience, who's in the office. I think it depends on, I'll be honest, I think it depends on the person's want to be able to do this part of the job. There are towns where and cities probably where the assessor actually physically stays in the office and doesn't do the inspections, and that they have either another person, the chief assessor or the principal assessor, which is essentially the same thing. That person may stay in the office, and then they have someone else either that works for the city or town, who goes out and does the inspections, or they have a company. Seeing that we have the company, I like the idea because I think that being someone from the outside at this moment, what good is it for them to fudge something? It's not going to help them any, and I also feel that I don't want to say they have no interest in the city, because they certainly do. I mean, this is their job. Their name is on all the work that they do. But it's not going to benefit them to go to someone's house and say, "Oh, I really like you, so I'm going to lower your assessment," or go to someone's business and do the same thing. I certainly don't think that would be of anyone's benefit if they lived in the city either. But we know how people are. They sometimes turn their nose and they turn their head. They don't see something that because it's their friend or because it's their family member or because whatever reason. So I really think that it depends on the scenario. I think that it's a really good idea to have a mix. If you have an outside company doing things for you and also having your chief assessor or your assistant assessor or both, doing inspections, I think it's a really nice mix because, for example, someone from RRG may go out and look at, I'm just going to use you, David, because you asked the question. Someone comes out and looks at your house from RRG and says, "Okay, I think your house is valued at $125,000. And then someone from the assessor's office that works for the city goes out and says, "Well, I think it's a little bit more than that because you have the bathrooms listed as average condition, but they're immaculate. They're, the most expensive stone from floor to ceiling, and they should be here." And you can have the conversation as to why this company said this, but the assessor says this, or vice versa. The company may say, "No, it's up here," and the assessor says, "No way, it's way down here." So I think it's a really good thing to be diverse and have that mixture of both your outside company as well as your internal.
And is that how it works in Greenfield?
That is currently how it works in Greenfield, yes.
All right. Now next, so there's 4 people in your office besides the company. There's you, a part-time person, and 2 elected assessors, right?
Sort of. So the people who are in the office every day are me and the part-time assistant. The assessors only come, the board members only come and have any dealings with us on our meeting days. So for example, right now our meeting days are every other Wednesdays. So every other Wednesdays, we bring information to the table to these 2 board members, which they have not seen all week because they have their own jobs.
Okay, I'm sorry. I meant the department, not the office. You're right. But there are 4 people in the department. There's the 2 that are in the office day to day and the 2 elected assessors.
Yes.
So what do the assessors do?
The board members?
Yeah.
So they will now Greenfield may be different than other towns or cities, but in Greenfield, what they do is we bring them every week our abatements that we processed for excise taxes. So if someone has gotten rid of a vehicle and either transferred or canceled plates, we can process the abatement, and we have to make sure that we have an application for abatement, either a plate cancellation or transfer, or I should say, and paperwork showing that they are no longer the owner of the vehicle. Whatever happened to that vehicle, we need proof of that.
So they
so
deal
San-
with,
Go ahead.
they deal with the legal stuff. So if there's a legal issue, you have to bring it to the board to deal with it because the state statutes or the regulations say in order to do an abatement, in order to do this, in order to do that, the assessors.
In a sense, yes, but you know, there's other parts to it as well, and I also have to deal with the legal part of it more so than them. So basically, the board will sign off on those as long as they see that we have done our job. They will discuss overvaluation. So if someone comes in and says my property is valued too high, they file the overvaluation in January. We go out, either myself or RRG or both of us go out and do an inspection of the property, look at our record card in comparison to what is actually physically there to make sure that the information is correct. If things need to be changed, we make those changes and we present it to the board. Sometimes those changes are, here's a scenario, we could do this or this. Either way would be an accurate way to represent whatever's happening here. What do you guys think is the best way to do it? What is the most professional? What are your opinions about that? And so we discuss things like that. So it's really, you know, it sort of depends on the scenario as to what exactly they do.
Are there limitations to what the elected assessors do compared to you and your
Yes.
office person? And what are those limitations?
So they do not have access to any of our databases. So they cannot make any changes in Patriot Properties, which is what we use for our assessments for real estate and personal property. They do not have access to Munis, which is our billing system, so they cannot process any types of abatements on any bills. They can't change anyone's mailing address. There's really nothing in comparison. They can't make any changes without my approval or Sandra. Although Sandra's not on the board, so really it's my approval, and then either Sandra or I have to make that change.
Would that be different if all the assessors were appointed?
No.
So only, so if there was 3 appointed with 1 chief, you're saying that the 2 other appointed assessors would have limitations?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you believe that's because of the law or just because of the policy of Greenfield?
No, I believe that that's the law. Well, it's hard to say, I guess, because most cities and towns don't give their board members access to their systems. But you might see in smaller cities and towns that the board members actually go out and do the inspections. So I don't want to say that it's the law because
But clearly it's your okay. So I want everybody who, you know, all of us who are listening, because that one of the questions was, you know, how much control do each of the assessors have? So if you expanded it to 7 assessors, would that mean that the other 6 assessors, whether they're chosen or they're appointed or they're elected, would also not have access to the inner workings of the assessor's office?
that is correct.
Okay. Well, that's good to understand that, because if we were going to add more people, then we have to understand what the change would be. On the other hand, your office internally, through negotiation with the city council for funding and certainly for the mayor for what she wants to do, you can reorganize the assessor's office and expand the inside office to have other people help you out. And those
Correct.
people, would those people have access to the internal information?
Yes.
So it's really the distinction between an external assessor and an internal assessor, correct?
Right. So if you're a board member, you do not have access to the systems. They do have very limited access to what we call Gateway, which is where we put all of our data for the final tax bills. But they can't submit anything and they can't make changes on anything. So the only thing that they have the ability to do is put their signature on something, and then I have to submit it. And they can't make changes because the only person that has the ability to do that is me or RRG, who also helps input some of the data there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I didn't mean to monopolize, but I just
No,
felt like
that's okay.
those are kind of some of the things that we've been thinking about. Anybody else have any questions on this? Any thoughts that have come up? Chris?
Just a couple of follow-up questions, Kim, if I may.
Sure.
Do you know how much we pay RRG every year?
So the contract was negotiated with the previous mayor, and it did increase little by little each year. This year, if you bear with me, I can pull up the figure of what we paid pretty quickly. And again, keep in mind that the fiscal year 2022, which is what we are entering, is a tad higher, but if we did not have RRG, it would be a significant amount higher. So the property assessments that are currently being paid for fiscal year 2021 is $104,000. And that is clearly, as you know, not including any benefits. Now for fiscal year 2022, it has increased a little bit, but again, keep in mind that if we had done no RRG during a reval year, it probably would have increased more than, I think it was only maybe $4,000 at maximum of an increase between this year and next year. And we would need way more than that if we didn't have them.
When you were talking about the discrete duties and responsibilities of both sides, so the assessors, the Board of Assessors, they are not dealing with or accessing property cards or things like that.
No, and actually, it has been brought to my attention that there was question whether or not the board members could influence either me or anything having to do with the assessor's systems, people's values, so on and so forth. They do not. They have nothing to do with those. We may discuss something. It could be an overval situation, and they believe that someone's value should be lower for some reason or another. We could discuss a property that's brought to our attention for whatever reason, and they believe that it should be lower, but the ultimate decision is based on what is actually physically on the property. And in all honesty, that is also out of my hands because I was not the one who chose to build whatever building it is and put whatever is there. And my job by law is to assess what is there. So if I was influenced by anyone, then I could be at risk for losing my job as well. So absolutely no influence whatsoever in changing people's assessments.
Thank you very much, Kim.
You're welcome.
As always, a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? So what would the committee like to discuss? Some ideas about recommendations for the charter at this point? Do we want to think about it? What would we like to do? It seems to me that maybe the system we have right now is not the charter piece of it is not broken. Of course, others may disagree. So what do people have? What do people think? There. You're muted.
You're mute.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt the what do people think, but I did come on late. So I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that I have asked for a legal opinion, which we will pay for, and that will answer some questions. I don't know if that was mentioned at the beginning or not.
Yes, I did.
Okay, I figured you did, but anyway, so.
But it goes to the appointment election piece, and it sounds like there's a.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a chief assessor and a staff, that's called the inside. And then there's the rest of the assessors and they're the outside. So it kind of changes the idea of election appointment of the assessors in terms of the power of the other assessors and how many. So at least it does for me. So anybody else have any thoughts on it? I gotta put something in the report.
I mean, yeah, I have thoughts.
Good. Not just mine.
I feel like the really ultimately most of the controversy, as I see it, seems to come down to the difference between having a vendor doing the on the ground assessments versus having a full-time employee who may or may not reside in Greenfield to do the assessments. That's just my, having been around the conversation, I think it seems like it comes down to that. And the way that the charter is written now gives you, as I understand it, the flexibility to do either. Rather, it gives the mayor the flexibility to do either. And so Greenfield has, in the years that it's been a city, had at least, we've had both configurations, RRG, Mayflower, someone in the office before that. I have not been convinced of a reason to eliminate, to sort of tie the hands of any future mayor. I have yet to be convinced that order should mandate one way or the other. I think that a lot of this conversation comes down to a feeling that assessing could be raising more revenues, more tax revenues, which is not the way that assessing works. Assessing could redistribute the way in which taxes are collected. And so might provide more equity, but the levy is the levy. And that's my feeling there. So I'm not convinced. I think it works the way it's set up, and I'm not in favor of a change.
Okay. Anybody
Can
else?
I add one quick thing? I know I don't really count because I'm not a member, but I just just hearing what you had to say makes me think too that there has been a lot of changes in the assessor's office over the past few years. And I think that we're sort of, so to speak, a fragile egg right now because we've had so many changes. There's many different opinions. There's maybe a hole here or there where there wasn't before just because of all the changes that are happening. And so what I fear is that we make a decision, for example, to have internal people rather than external people. We put this in our charter, and then we find out that we lost this incredible company who brings a ton to us. Although they may be, on the higher side of companies, they bring so much with what we pay for. And then we find out that we're stuck in a really hard spot where we can't hire anybody because there isn't anybody. And so we end up hiring someone who can do the job, but not great. And then we end up digging this deep hole that we're coming out of deeper. And so, although I totally understand wanting to have people working for the city and not, or working in the city and not just for the city, I think the assessing world is hitting a hard spot right now as well. And I think that we need to be careful with that. And I think if we are going to make changes, which is totally okay, we just have to be careful about how we do it because we don't want to fall back into that hole.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. Anybody else? Well, Chris, you led the charge on this. Do you feel comfortable? And of course, I want to hear what the mayor has to say, but do you feel comfortable leaving the charter pretty much as it is? It sounds like organizational things that Kim's talking about are really, it's really a conversation that the city councilors should have with the mayor's office and the assessors if you want to deal with this on a budgetary level, but it's not a charter question. The only charter question that I mean, the mayor wonderfully is now going to answer the question of electing and appointing, but now kind of, I think that's minimized a little bit. So it would seem to me that the Charter Commission should recommend that things pretty much stay the same at the charter level. And I'll leave it to the counselors and the mayor and Kim to work out the assessor's office. Is that fair to say? Sheila, also, I'd love to hear from you as a counselor.
David,
Go ahead.
Oh, did you want me to comment?
I do. I want everybody, especially in town government now, because as far as I could tell, this is not, it's to change this at the charter level, it seems like it's not necessary.
Well, first of all, I appreciate getting the legal opinion, so I thank the mayor for that because that will clear a lot of the air. Second, so if I were going to vote tonight on this, I would not be voting to keep it the same as it is right now. I would like to see, I think the number is right. I think the distinction to me is that it should be all appointed, all elected, and I like the concept of the chief assessor not being one of those. That's my personal opinion. Whether we hire outside people or we have a field assessor or as Kim mentioned, she goes out when necessary, or anybody else in the office goes out when it's necessary. I get that. I just think actually it's cleaner. Just makes more sense to me in a structural way, easier to understand. However, I respect everybody else's opinion. Whatever opinion goes forward to council, I certainly respect that.
Well, okay. Mayor, any comments on that? No? Yes. Still unmute, Mayor, sorry.
I'm unmuted. I personally, with respect, of course, to Councillor Forgy's opinion, don't feel that it's broken. And therefore, I don't feel that it needs to be fixed. And I think Kim made a very good case for that. That said, and I think she probably agrees with me, if it was, and I don't know if it's a compromise or whatever, if it was decided that there should be more assessors, however you want to make that work, then I'm not gonna, definitely not gonna die on that hill. So I don't, what I want, and I think everybody must understand after this discussion, is that the assessor department is working the way that it is supposed to work right now. And if you add more people, then that may make it work better. It may make it work worse. It may not, we don't know. And I'm not arguing on the side of keep it the way it is. From that standpoint, I'm just saying, I don't think it's broken. Because there are all of those things in place that she discussed based on the history that we know caused this discussion to come forward in the first place. So there is no access to databases by the elected assessors. They can't make changes, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a check on their activity, but at the same time, they provide the context and the community contact that is so important to the people who are being assessed. So I do think that's important, and I don't think it should be left in the hands of one person, as in an assistant assessor or a chief assessor that is in town, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, I think, all I have to say on this. But I appreciate your asking me for my opinion. Thanks.
Sheila, any thoughts? She's on twice. Okay. Can you hear us, Sheila?
Yeah, sorry, I had to close it down a second ago. Everybody froze on me.
Okay,
Do you hear me okay?
we do.
Okay.
We want to know if you have thoughts as a counselor about changing the charter.
So I don't like to fix things if they aren't broken. But I think that Counselor Forgy did put a lot of, thought into this, and she spent a lot of time doing some homework. She does have some really good ideas. In a perfect world, I would like to see all the assessors elected, but I don't think we had anyone run the last time. I think it was a write-in. I don't remember if we had candidates the time before that, but it seems like this is a position where it's really hard to get people to run for it. So maybe leaving, some appointed and some elected, that might be how we have to do it, which I think is unfortunate, but we have to be realistic about it.
And I just say too, I think along those lines, Sheila, that is also one of those things that unfortunately the assessor's world is seeing in many, many places where it is hard to get people to actually work in the assessor's office, but also on the board as well.
All right. Okay. I mean, ultimately, again, I think this is going to come down to the counselors and the mayor talking this out if there's going to be a change. So Chris, if I understand you, the differences that I see are that you don't want there to be a staggered. You'd like it to be all elected or all appointed, not the chief being appointed and the other two being elected. Now, in our charter, the chief is on her own in the sense that the chief is the chief. So would you want language to change more than what it says in the charter? Would you, if you wanted, if you could just take this section and change the little language that you would want. Like I said, I think it's going to come in that we could have a hybrid board. Otherwise, this charter wouldn't have been approved by the AG's office.
Right, I get it.
But it doesn't mean that you can't think that it's good to have a not hybrid board just as a matter of policy. So but I'm happy to say that, one of the counselors or several of the counselors had this idea. But if our recommendation, like all the other recommendations, however since you're a counselor and you feel strongly about it, you can take that up with the council, but you'd have to negotiate with the mayor because the mayor would have to agree with it. So,
Right.
So you have to figure out how to do that. So I think the committee has kind of run out of room except to understand it. But I don't think there's really much. I mean, I don't have any personal opinion about it. I don't know if any other members, other than the counselors. I just don't. I think there needs to be a check and a balance personally, that if you have elected and you have appointed, then you've got everybody in the arena. And that's one of the reasons I like the way it is now. But it wouldn't hurt my feelings if it switched. I don't think all elected, I would agree with, no offense to Sheila. I'd like to see the chief be appointed. That I think is almost a cabinet position for the mayor. But anyway, okay, have we beaten this horse to its natural death? No, Eric? Yes.
I would just say that I think it should remain as it is. I think I could see the argument for adding more, but I would worry about finding the people to actually serve. I do remember that the last election was a write-in. And so I would worry. And I also, as long as it comes back that you can have a hybrid, I think the hybrid is the better option, rather than all elected, which again, we don't have the people seemingly to get elected, and then all appointed, could be questionable in terms of the amount of power that puts in one person's hand. So I think it should stay as it is.
Thank you. Alan?
Yeah, it seems to me after listening to all the opinions that this is somewhat a case again of that a charter can't legislate an effective agency, that it could be all elected and there could be abuses or dysfunctions in that office. It could be all appointed and there could be abuses and dysfunctions in the office. And it could be a hybrid, and there could be abuses and dysfunctions in the office. So in my mind, if a fair amount of people don't think it's broken, I would leave it as it is, because I'm not sure that what we could do with charter language would fix all the possibilities.
Thank you, Alan. Chris, go ahead.
So if the majority of the council of the charter, sorry, wrong hand, if everybody, my colleagues on this committee are saying that that they think that it is okay to leave it the way it is, and if that is the recommendation that needs to go forward to the council and the mayor, that is okay with me, as long as there is a paragraph about my dissenting opinion.
Of course. I wouldn't call it dissenting.
Oh, I want to be on the Supreme Court. Come on.
I also just wanted to quickly mention, just a peace of mind is that, as well as just, you know, being a good human and doing your job the way you're supposed to, there are laws that we have to follow as well. So some of these things that were speculated that someone thought may have happened in the office cannot happen by law. And I'm not willing to put that at risk, because I have a family to take care of and I need my job. So just for a little peace of mind, on that sort of thing, that, there are laws and rules and regulations that we do have to follow as all members of the board.
Of course. And we never meant to infer anything but
Oh,
that
no.
you put yourself out to the highest. We
No.
just we play a make-believe game called corruption, and we try to make believe where corruption might arise in government. And then we play that out, trying to write the charter so that if there were corrupt people in our system, it would be harder for them to succeed.
Yes.
And that's really what I think at the charter level, some of that is. It's the balance, checks and balances, things of that nature. There's efficiency, there's checks and balances. That's how we look at it. We're like at 10,000 feet. You're right in there, and you know how it works. And believe me, I'm glad to have met you on this web, what is it? A WebEx meeting, and get to hear what goes on. And I want to thank you, Kim and Chris. I want to thank you for all your hard work. And Mayor, I want to thank you for going for that legal opinion. So
Sure.
And there will be more. I won't write it as pros and cons. I'll just write it that there's another opinion.
Fine, good. That's good.
I just want to also acknowledge that I appreciate Chris's efforts here, because she did bring to the floor, which I think was very important, as opposed to behind the scenes, a discussion of this very important office in the city of Greenfield.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. So we only want to see it work very well. So, okay. So
David, before we move on, I have a question real quick. Actually, this might be a question for the mayor. Do you know when the legal opinion is going to be available? I'm wondering if we're going to see that again here with the Charter Commission, or if it's going to come to the City Council.
Well, it is my understanding, based on an email I received from Attorney Belcher-Timmy, it could be available as soon as Friday. Now, I feel that I don't have any reason why if it's Friday or Monday, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't release it to both the council and the Charter Commission. So I don't have any problem with that. either
Thank
way.
Great, thank you.
That would make it a good use of your spending that money if we all knew it.
That's right.
If only you knew it, I don't know if that would be so
You
good.
know, if he comes back and he says, "Oh, don't change anything,"
I don't think that's
he's
gonna
gonna
happen.
owe me several drinks in bars from here till eternity. I don't know.
All right, Mayor, I'd like you to stay for the next piece, which is
I'm happy to do that.
temporary absence of the mayor. There's been some questions about your suggested change.
Okay.
I will depart. Thank you all for having me. And if
Thanks,
you
Kim.
need, if the legal opinion comes back and there needs to be more discussion, absolutely let me know and I can certainly come back.
Yep,
Thank you.
and if I
Thank
get
you.
a high tax bill, I'm sure to come and talk to you again.
Yes, right.
Absolutely. I'll be happy to help.
I think $125,000
She'd be
on
happy
behalf of the city was a little bit
help, she
low.
said. Hey, don't say things like that. Help me understand is more like it. Okay, thank you, Kim. You
Thank you all.
free to go at any time. So who had a question about I think Otis, maybe Aaron, if I'm remembering, about the mayor's suggestion. So can somebody put out what their concern is and what they'd like to see different?
One question I had was about whether the intention was 21 business days or 21 calendar days. 21 business days is quite a long time, than 21 calendar days. So that was a clarifying question I had.
You know, that is a good question that I'm not sure since I didn't realize I was going to be asked that question tonight, I'm not sure I've fully analyzed in the way that you're talking about it. When I thought of it, I am very aware of the weight of the office and the number of things that have to be decided on a daily basis. Probably, obviously, in the last year and whatever couple of months, it has been more so than I would have ever imagined. So I think my interest was in making sure that whoever was, I mean, you're right, 21 business days would imply the working days. Yeah. There are many weeks when I work every day of the week in some capacity or the other.
Mhm.
So it's a little difficult to discuss, to distinguish between business days or the other. And that may be true of I'm sure it's probably going to be true in the future of every mayor and was probably the truth in past mayors. So it's not, it's to understand the realities today on the ground of the job versus in 2000 when we didn't have a clue what a mayor did. And so I wanted to make sure that there was enough time in there that someone who was more connected to the office, if I'm understanding the recommendation that I made, I apologize, I don't have it completely in my brain, but I think I know what I'm talking about. Who knew what the day-to-day was versus someone who would have to come in and be brought up to speed for at least 5 to 7 of those 21 days. So it's important. I guess what I'm getting at is it's important to maintain the continuity of the day-to-day work. And so I certainly can't even fathom going on a 21-day vacation. But I also, I mean, someday, maybe, I can't imagine that, but I also can't say, and I think this is where the weight of the pandemic got to me, that there might be a point in the future when a mayor was simply not able to fulfill the whole job for more than whatever the short amount was, which I think is like 10 days or
Yes.
something like that.
10 days.
So it has to be longer than 10. Does it have to be 21? Maybe not.
So, Erin, you asked the question, but if you had a concern, what was the concern about the 21 days?
Well, I just think if you're talking about 21 calendar days, that's 3 weeks. And I understand that in a mayor's job, business days is 7 days a week. But in the charter, we seem to have distinction between those two things. And so if you're talking about 21 business days, that's over a month. So my question is just, are we talking about 3 weeks in the calendar, or are we talking about 4 weeks plus, because we're talking about business days? And if we're not talking about business days, we shouldn't say business days, because I think throughout the rest of the charter, there's a lot of reference to business days for how long you have to submit things in advance. So that's my question about it.
Okay. So you think, who was going to speak? I'm sorry.
That was me. The only thing I would say about that is there are certain pieces of Mass General Law that say that respect the 5-day work week. And therefore they just, yeah.
Let's be more mundane than that. Business day means Monday through Friday. I don't care how you want. I mean, that's what it means. So we're not changing we're not going to change the definition of business day.
Yeah.
Even if the mayor works Saturdays and Sundays, it's business days.
So I understand why there are references throughout the charter. It takes X number of business days to get X, Y document back. That is a practical application of the use of the 5-day work week. But where we're talking about who should take on the role of the job of the mayor, I think you have to understand that it could be more than 5 days a week. So therefore, is a month too long? I honestly don't have an opinion on that. I was looking at the fact that the time frame in the charter today is too short.
Let me, Otis, I know you had, go ahead. I want to make a statement though. Go ahead.
Thanks. I feel that there needs to be a hard deterrent to negligence. And it comes back to the thing that we've said before, where a lot of the charter provisions are in there to protect against a worst case scenario. And, Greenfield has had, in the past, I know of at least one case of an elected official who did not come to work. So, in our 15-year history, that has happened. And it's not inconceivable that it couldn't happen at the level of the mayor. I believe the 10 days is, the way it's written is a little bit, I do think a mayor who works as hard as the mayors we've had should be able to get away. The way that this is written, you could go away for 2 weeks if there was a holiday in there. I understand, Mayor, where you're coming from, but I guess that I'm inclined to think that if a mayor needs to get away for whatever reason, can come back for a day and start the clock ticking again. Certainly can empower a chief of staff to do the duties for a couple of weeks. And I understand that it's not ideal to have the president of the city council take over as acting mayor. But were that to happen, I think it would have to be, what does it say, 60 days? in order, so if the city council president were to become acting mayor, there'd be need to be an absence for over 60 days in order for their hands not to be tied. So I guess I would still need to be convinced, because I really do feel the need for that, like I said, hard deterrent against negligence.
So my sense of this provision is that that forgetting the days, the mayor, there are times when the mayor will be indisposed, either through sickness, through vacation, through whatever. And the charter gives the mayor the power. I mean, Mayor, you put chief of staff. I don't really think you, if I may, should really even name the person, because the charter allows you to designate a qualified person.
This is true.
So instead of tying your hands, you might as well keep that open. So let's say it goes for a period of time, a comfortable period of time, 10 days, 21 days, whatever that is. But the next step is if the mayor is not able to perform his or her functions for longer than that period of time. So there's the idea that Otis has about, you know, a mayor taking advantage. And then there's the other thing about, we really have a situation where the mayor can't perform. So what happens next? So that's really the line. So the line is temporary, taking care of all sorts of things, including vacations, including illness. We have one set of criteria. Something a little stronger, we have another criteria, which is, and I respectfully ask the mayor to think about this and the rest of the committee. Then somebody else takes over, and automatically takes over, actually. And that would be in our current charter, the president of the council, and if not able, the vice president of the council. And that person then takes over until 60 days have gone by. So the mayor now gets a chance to recover. And it's just that somebody's got to be in charge. But after 60 days, as I read it, let's see, the acting mayor shall have no authority, permanent removal from city service. So but that person before 60 days can't make permanent decisions as a mayor could. But after 60 days, that person could begin to act like a full mayor. So that's what I see this section calling on. It's short, medium, long periods of time. Who's in charge? Who's in charge at home? I disagree with you, Mayor, about appointing the chief of staff to be your replacement after this 10 or 21-day period, because I think the charter anticipated that an elected official would take over that position, not your appointed person. You get to appoint short-term, elected official takes over after that. Now, we might want to add something that says with a designated person from the mayor's staff taking over the day-to-day operations of the city, you know, might add something about, because as Sheila has pointed out, you know, I'm not sure everybody that runs for the president of the city council or vice president of city council understands that they could automatically become mayor and would have to wait it out. I mean, so if the president said, well, I can't do it because I have a full-time job, I can't do it, then the vice president does it. I don't even know who would come. I don't know if we have something after that. But so I guess in terms of maybe we have to have a special election. So in terms of that, Erin and Otis, does that make it so, does it really make a difference between the 10 and the 21? If the 21 is really up to 21, let's say business days. Oh, business days would make it a month, I guess. Okay. But even if we did that, 14, 18, 21, that's just that a designated person is in charge of the mayor's office. After that, I think the president or vice president should be that person with a mayor's designee. But it doesn't, I mean, I just want to understand that that's why that's in there. If the mayor decides not to come to work, that's not what this provision is. That's throw the bum out. That's another provision. That's called recall. But this is a
You have
situation,
two mayors on this, you know.
but I see this as I see this as this is a situation where a good faith, hardworking mayor is just indisposed. So anyway, but I'm going to disagree, Mayor, and I don't know what others think, but I cannot agree with the chief of staff to mayor by your appointment. That seems that again, you can add that person will be the person who helps the president or vice president. Yes, Mayor.
Well, I take your point, most definitely. And I also think that your suggestion that it be less specific in its designation may be a good operable way to do it. I only made the suggestion that I made because I hope that any future mayor has the good sense to have a competent chief of staff, not a political hack appointee. But you're right, to Otis's point, we can't guarantee that. I just happen to know the importance of that job when it is done well, means that that person fully understands just about everything that is going on in the mayor's office at that point in time. Now, you make a very strong case, as far as I'm concerned, David, that as the person who is assisting the elected official, then that is a good temporary chain of command. I don't disagree with that at all.
I remember when I was president of the council, Mayor Martin was gone for like 15 days. And I thought, here's my chance. I could be there for a day, but he came back. He came back on the midnight flight, and that was the end of that. So I'm concerned 21 days is way too long. I would have rather it was like 10 days, but that's me. So does it really matter? I mean, I could put in the charter that the mayor has suggested to change the time period, and it sounds like the mayor is hearing the suggestions about not naming chief of staff, and the chief of staff could be put. We could add a provision that says if the president of the council or vice president are come into command, that the designated mayor's designated person will run the day-to-day operations of the city, so there's continuity. So are we okay? Does anybody have any other strong feelings about the days that we've talked it out? Okay, great. Thank you for a good discussion. All right. Next is the dreaded Section 7.
Am I dismissed?
It's up to you, but you are dismissed.
Sounds like a good time to leave if I were you.
I dream about this stuff. It's so bad.
You're relieved, not dismissed, right?
Yeah, the daylight savings time has been a long day, What time is it anyway? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
You guys are so much appreciated by me. Bye now. Section.
Okay. We were going to do, there's just a couple of things that I want to point out to the committee. There may be other things that you want to talk about. But again, to go through this sequence of 7.6, 7.7, and 7.8, so we can be of help when this comes up, in front of the council. Maybe we could go to the public hearings and show everybody how educated we've become as charter committee members. Under 7.6, it gives members. So again, here's how we have a representative form of government. We no longer have town meeting. We have a representative form of government. You still have your vote. You vote for a representative. That representative goes in. and does what that representative, votes on measures. You can lobby that person, you can do whatever you want, but ultimately that person gets the vote, and that's the vote that counts. And then you get 7-8 to fight it, and that's another discussion. But in the front end of it, in order to get something before the city council that citizens want them to talk about, and not just the councilors you've elected want to talk about, you can file petitions under 7.6 or under 7.7. And as Alan had pointed out, they are distinct. 7.6 is a way to get the council's attention, but the council, I don't believe, doesn't have to take the matter up. Is that right, Alan?
I believe so, yes.
Right. Under 7.7, now you're looking for the council to take up something and make it an ordinance, or it could even be a modification of the charter, I guess, but make it law. And so I sent you the state law to show how barren the state law is in its approach. It's almost ridiculous. It basically says if 15% of the electorate petitions the city council on a measure, they have to pass the measure. And the only way you can defeat the measure, if you're against it as a citizen, is within 21 days of the passing of the measure, you have to go in and file a referendum petition to get it on the ballot. That's the state law. Those two sections, that's it. And so can you imagine? I'm thinking to myself, Greenfield, that could almost work. Boston, geez, that means that people have to form committee on committee on committee. 15% of the voters, that's a big deal. That's a big deal to get that done. Here, we have a little bit of a different system, which we've talked about tweaking, but this system that's currently in place is, if you're really excited, let's let a threshold level called X petition the city council, and the city council has to take it up. They can no longer avoid it. If the city council disagrees with the petition, then the petitioners under our charter have to go out and get X plus signatures. So you assume the X will still be there. Now you have to get X plus. And by doing that, there's so much in my head, but I believe at that point, it goes directly to the voters. What has been suggested by one of our active citizens is so I don't see that. I know I use the word punitive, and now I think that I shouldn't have, because it really depends on the percentages. It could be like 5 people get to do it and 10 people get to bring it. I mean, it's only punitive if you make it impossible. What one of our citizens has suggested is that it goes, you have a certain number of signatures, it goes to city council. If they reject it, then it goes automatically to the ballot. I can't come to terms in my head. Well, I know that the barren approach by the state legislature is not, we should do better than that. I don't know whether the system as it exists now, with some tweaking, maybe the number of days should be shortened, maybe the percentages should be fair. I don't know whether the supplemental petition is an unfair thing, or it's just another example of building momentum, so that if you're going to put something on the referendum, you would hope you have enough support that it will pass. You're not just doing it to bust chops. You're doing it because you've built enough momentum that you think the council is ignoring so let's say that, there's a majority of citizens, there's a majority of councilors. The council isn't reading the majority of citizens. Therefore, the citizens need to put it on the ballot so they can get this law into effect. So I don't know how the supplemental petition or not having it really makes, I don't know if we're, some people think it's hurting to have the supplemental. In my mind, it feels like, well, why do it if you can't get it passed? Why are you going through all this effort if you really don't have a lot of people interested in it? I mean, it just doesn't seem to, that's different than blocking a measure. That's a whole nother, that's playing defense. This is playing offense. So I don't know. I just need some help. I wanted to bring it out again, and I sent you, so Alan took the time to take our current charter section and put an appendix in it, because we're going to recommend an appendix with any of these provisions, because I think they're just too hard to read. And so the question is, not that we have to decide, but I just like to hear people's conceptualization of this particular section being a non-supplemental or a supplemental petition section. And I'll shut up now. Only for a minute, but so hurry up. Alan?
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, I thought it seemed to be a logical progression, and the idea that you could get, my preference would be that the original initiative could be filed with a lower percentage submitted to the council or school committee. They could make a decision. If they don't like it, then they would not approve it, but the citizens could then gather more signatures and submit it to the voters. It just seems like a logical progression to me. I'm not sure why it would be necessary to, the other option, I guess, would be to make it a higher level of signatures initially and then not have any supplemental options after that. But I don't know why that's particularly a benefit one way or the other. And also because it is an initiative rather than a referendum, that if the process is extended because of this, making it a two-step process rather than a one-step process, I don't see what the harm is to, the government or to any of the issues if you go through that process.
I want to add to that, Alan. If you have a high number of people to just get it on the ballot, you don't even give the council the chance to agree with it and maybe pass it. So you're losing that option. It's almost like you're playing defense a little bit by bringing it, directly to the community. Mm-hmm. Sheila, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think I'm okay with only a few people having to sign, just to put it on the council's agenda. Because if we're ignoring 10 constituents, that's pretty bad, right? I think my main concern is the, whether or not things go to the ballot, because that's where, we've seen trouble in the past where, we've got deadlines that are set. And I think even knowing that something isn't going to go the way those folks wanted it to go, I think there was a strategy around, foot dragging that they thought was going to work. I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm probably being too vague, but.
Well, no, you're being factual, but how about sort of policy-wise? Do you think there should be a higher? So you're saying it's no big deal if a few people get something before the council. They can say yes, they could say no. That's maybe
right,
that's okay. But
that's all right. Yeah, it's hard to do that.
If you say no, what percentage would you want how would you like to see it happen after you say no? Would you like there to be a high number of people that then have to put it on the ballot, a medium amount of people that have to put it on the ballot?
I would like it to be a higher number than it is now, but I don't want it to be, out of reach. You had said something about 15%, which that's like 15 people.
Yeah,
I think, which is a lot. That's a lot.
It's actually more. It's like 1,600 people. But yes, yeah. No, I see what you mean. But would it be? We haven't gotten here yet. I seem to think in my mind that 5 to 10% of registered voters is kind of the area to talk about where we're going to go with all this stuff. Where the numbers are going to be, because people will fight you. 10% will seem high and 5% will seem low. So it's going to float around between those two numbers, I think. So would that work for you if it was a small number and somewhere between 5 and 10% of the community of the registered voters then brought it to?
I'm thinking if we go with 10%, we want to give them time, and if we're going to go with 5%, then we don't need to give them as much time. So
in initiative, time is not a problem. So It's in the referendum that time is a
Oh,
problem.
that's true. It's the referendum. Yeah. Okay. I've
I know
conflated
it's hard.
these two so solidly in my mind. I'm
No,
never
they
going to
are,
be able to keep them apart.
but they're, go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, I just, for reference, after looking at this for a long time and hearing a lot of things, my personal opinion, my personal preference would be to require 5% of the voters to get an initiative to the city council, and then an additional 2.5% to take it to an election. So you're talking about 600 signatures to get the initiative to a required decision by the council. And then if they reject it, then another 300 or so. You're talking, 900 or so signatures to take an initiative to the ballot. That's
Would
just
you
a
agree?
personal thought, because again, all of our discussions have been that it should be a hard process, but not an impossible process. So those numbers sounded okay to me.
Okay, so you're pretty much saying that you agree with what's written, maybe tweak the percentages, but the section 7 as currently written with the supplemental petition, you think could remain the same in your eyes?
Not as currently written, as is proposed in the rewrites that we've submitted, right?
But with a supplemental petition?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll just say that I agree with Alan. I like those numbers.
Aaron and Chris and
I have a question. I mean, I think supplemental should stay, especially, and I do think that we should be careful about not going too low in terms of the initial presentation. But how does that compare to what it has, because it was not less than 10% of the voter who had voted in the recent election, or less than 5%. So what you're saying is we're going with that 5% number. Okay.
Well, I don't think I mean, Alan was concrete. I'm if you want to be concrete also, but it's just the concept of, I mean, is that make a difference to you? And so let's say, so you have a starting percentage. You want that starting percentage. So here's the policy consideration. Do you want the starting percentage to be very low? So then the council can be, I mean, if you're a counselor, you could be inundated with these things all the time if it's very low. But if you make it too high, it doesn't seem fair, right? I mean, if a large enough number of people want to see the council look at something and they're refusing to look at it at a lower percentage of people asking them to look at it, then now you have to force their hand, right? I mean, then the council should look at it. So you want to have a little bit of power there. Council looks at it. Council says no. Now what happens? Now you have to go out under E and you have to get the same people that hopefully helped you in the first place, but you have to gather more people in order to get it on the referendum, in order to get it to be, now remember, when you do that, you're overriding our system of government. Or maybe it's part of our system of government, the general nature of the government, by saying that now it's going to the citizens for vote. So now the council doesn't have any say in it anymore. So you've built, so it depends. If you want to be cynical, think about how somebody might kind of push something a little different than maybe the elected officials think should be the way we do business, and push it into a referendum. But again, if everybody votes for it, then that's the way it goes, right? I mean, it's not a bad thing. You have to get a majority. You have to have a certain number of people even have to turn out to vote. It can't be just 10 people, all the people who are for it show up. So the question is, where is it fair to start it? And then what should make it a little harder to get it on the ballot, but as Sheila said, not make it so onerous that it's almost, you know, it's almost impossible. And that's always been that was the hard part in 2010. And we actually we made some of these lower than the original charter. I think I have to tell you, as a former counselor, I'm not that bothered by the initiative petitions, and I don't remember ever getting one really. You know, and the lawyer has to filter, and so you're not going to get something that's illegal. So blah blah blah. But the referendum petitions were harder to deal with because so much had gone into the vote of the council, and then to freeze that vote and wait for an election is, as we did with the library. I mean, whether you're for it or against it, it's kind of frustrating. It frustrates how government works. I mean, it's not a bad thing to have it in there, but it does frustrate how this doesn't frustrate how government works. I mean, the council says yes, no, it moves on. They're not bothered by it unless it's, you know. So I don't know. I came back to thinking that I personally like the supplemental. I like the lower higher, as Alan had said and as Otis had said. I would, and as Aaron had said. I like that, and Sheila said. So I don't know if Chris likes that or not, but I could leave it the way it is and have the percentages, you know, be moved around again, and maybe the dates for, you know, supplemental is 120, 180 days. That's a long time. I mean, maybe it should be shorter. You know, once you get your supplemental, the council should be forced to look at it sooner than, I mean, it should be on the ballot sooner than later. So is everybody on board?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
We're talking about changing this so it's a percentage of registered voters, not a percentage of the voters in the last election, correct?
Correct.
Because that's one thing that just kind of seems silly to me.
Yes, I think across the board, that's become our new definition. No,
Yeah, we've taken out the double definition.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds like the supplemental has been resuscitated.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Yeah.
I would just say that I'm not opposed to the 2.5%, but I just wonder if it should be higher, just in that, to me, the supplemental sort of becomes the referendum.
It does.
And so having something that goes to the council and then can just get 2.5%.
No,
even though
5% more.
It's 2.5% more, but in the referendum, it's 2.5%. And in essence, this becomes a referendum because you've already gone through one level of government. So you're talking about taking it to a whole new level of government. I'm not opposed to 2.5, but I just raise that and wonder if it should be higher.
Yeah, I understand. That's the conundrum.
So you're saying that actually 7.5% is too low.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Aaron, is 5% initiative and 5% supplemental workable?
I think so. I certainly wouldn't think to go higher than that. It would be something, I mean, obviously the council will decide, but I just wonder, especially because at the referendum level, what's that percentage when we get in? Is it 2.5% or is it 5%? What's the percentage there? And I think it should be similar to what happens in the initiative and supplemental together, if that makes sense.
Are you in the referendum process in 7.8? There is no supplemental petition because there isn't really a petition. It goes before the council and then it automatically goes to an election. So there's not, those two sections aren't parallel because the process is slightly different. With the referendum, it's what I would conceive would be a larger number of signatures. The council or school committee votes, and if they reject that referendum, then it immediately goes to a citywide ballot. So there's not a comparison between those two. So for the initiative, it's only 5% plus some percentage for supplemental, and the referendum is just a different process.
But I think that the supplemental is the parallel. The
Right.
supplemental is the parallel to the referendum. Yes, the initiative as a whole is not, but the supplemental is the parallel.
No, I think what you're saying, Aaron, is it should be the same the same percentage that could block a referendum should be the same percentage that should put it on the ballot.
Yep.
Yes.
Or putting it even broader, the same percentage should put it on the ballot in both sections.
Yep.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I actually agree with that, and 7.5% is kind of the number that's been in my head. It's not a clean number, but it's the number that's been in my head about the referendum petition.
Right. So whatever number you think of there, you're gonna filter it down to the okay. So again, in Aaron's example, if we're using the referendum, it would be 5 and 5, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I know it's late and maybe we want to save it for next time, but this really does. This is the whole reason I'm trying to do a balancing test that I could give to the city council to sort of use as their, I'm not saying my balancing test is the test, but I did it just so others could use it as a place to start. Maybe there's another place to start. But what always strikes me about this is where am I sitting in the government of the city? Am I a citizen? Am I in the government? When I got into government, I felt a little resistance to deploying and wanted to be left to be able to do my job as a representative, and only if things rose to a certain level did I want to be forced or caused to take on the wishes of a specific group of people. However, being a citizen, I think, what would happen if we had a council or a school committee that was really dysfunctional? And what number of people would it take? What number of people would be appropriate to think reasonably that should not be the case? But if you make it too low, then it becomes obnoxious, and if you make it too high, then you're you could be harming the community by not giving the people a chance to say this is not good. I mean, besides recalling and voting the people out of office. It'd be one thing if it was every 2 years. It's another thing, it's every 4 years. So I just, I don't know. That's what I wanted to discuss. We could open the next meeting with that. I'd love to have John participate as well. But I think I'd like there to be a question when the council has the public hearings on this and is talking about, like, what do you think? I'd like there to be something like this out there so that people can focus on how they're making the decisions. It's not just like, oh, I feel comfortable with 4%, or I feel comfortable with 15%, or I don't think you can look at it that way. I think it has to be this place where the scales, like, they just perfectly balanced, and if you put a little pin on one, it moves. It changes it. So that's my impression of it. But I think that, like, bad facts make bad law. The library thing, it went all the way down to 400 people. It seemed like there really was of people that were interested in blocking. There wasn't a majority of people interested in blocking the library, and yet they got the library to wait for 6 months before it could get going. And that seemed punitive to the process. You know, on the other hand, if the council's totally out of control, you want to have people be able to protest. So anyway, we can leave it at that. But we can discuss that maybe. I think we've gone through, unless there's other matters to talk about, I think we've gone through the whole charter. Anybody thinks of something, but maybe the next meeting. So I didn't do a draft 3 because I felt like this meeting was still a discussion meeting, not because I'm a lazy, you know what, but I will send out a draft 3, maybe even the beginning of a summary, and we can talk about this as the final piece. Is that okay? This will be the main topic for the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Sounds great.
Okay, so can I hear a motion to adjourn?
Do we need to
Wait,
set the
before
next
we do,
meeting?
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
what's the next one?
I would like to, I'm trying to get this done. So in 2 weeks, does that be good?
March 29.
Mhm.
March 29.
I can do that.
Works for me.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, thanks for the reminder.
5:30.
5:30. We're going to talk about one thing, the balancing test. Of course, if anybody has other things they want to bring up, please do, because I really want to start feeling like, I'm sure you all are feeling like it. It's very interesting to talk about it, but my brain is going to explode if I keep doing this.
Yeah.
That would be ugly. So, okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mhm.
Wheeler.
Second, Gilmore.
Okay, all in favor indicate by raising your hands in the camera.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody. As always, it's a pleasure.